So, hello everyone. I will do a completely different subject, but very connected to everything you presented here before. It's about ethical aspects of zoology collection management, and this subject started in my head to develop as a research proposal when I was working in a museum, and I saw that there is a lot of talk about climate change, a lot of talk about how to ethically manage the anthropological collection, so the human remains, but there's like a little bit of a gap in the zoology collections. No talk there. But some people had very strong opinions about it, though. And this will be just a brief introduction to the subject, as otherwise I will be here for hours. So let's start by saying that we are not going blind. We have legal international documents that deal with animals and animal rights, trade of endangered animals, so CITES. We have special handbooks that regard work in the museum. International Council of Museums provides us with two code of ethics, one for museums and one for natural history museums. But those are just general, simple instructions, and they don't go as deep as why we want to act ethically in that way, what's really ethical, and there's no discussion, it's just plain handbooks. But what I will dissect the title for you of the presentation, because collection management can seem a little bit cloudy for people that don't work at museums. So this is Freda Matassa's model, and we start with acquisition of the object, and this is where ethical dilemmas start, but definitely don't stop. We have documentation, very important conservation and preservation of those objects, storage, proper storage conditions, exhibitions, so what to display, how to display it safely, access for scientists and general research on the objects, loans between institutions, the accession, so removing objects collection, and general security and risk management. We also deal with a variety of different objects. So we have objects that are like historic, ethnographic, like folk art specimens, some old wet specimens, paleontological specimens, and specimens of extinct species. And we have modern specimens, and here a plethora of ethical dilemmas regarding hunting, euthanasia, ethical and artistic taxidermy, falsification and cryptozoology, bioart, live objects are also museum specimens, and rare and endangered species. But when it comes to museum work, I can tell you that they're all treated equally. Because I don't have much time, I decided to tell you a little bit more about ethical and artistic taxidermy. A little bit as a curiosity. So taxidermy is the way of preserving animal remains as dermoplasts, so the sculpture or skins. This is something that's stored in museums for scientific research, and it started hundreds of years ago as an upholstery, then to the traditional taxidermy, and in recent years evolved into the modern ethical taxidermy. And the word ethical here is how the remains of the animals were obtained. So in my work, I was dealing with roadkill, or animals that were given to us after they died of natural causes in zoological gardens or in captivity in different ways. And a lot of works in the movement of ethical taxidermy are artistic works that, for example, merge animal's body with other things. Like in here, we have this fox body merged with moss. And there's also some falsification involved. For example, this flamingo you see here, it's not a flamingo. It's a replica made of real feathers that were dyed and firstly ethically sourced. And it was sculpted in such a way to mimic the traditional taxidermy. Why I also wanted to involve this particular way of accession accession of objects in here is because ethical taxidermy is considered a female-led field. You can check out articles on that, for example, on BBC or The Guardian. There is much more than just general collection management from the model I showed you before and accession certain objects. For example, communication between museum and the spectator, because museums were always a tool for shaping opinions. And we can pretend that we are just neutral observators and archivists. We can step back, but a lot of museums now decide to engage in participatory model and to actually involve their audience and to raise voices in certain cases. There's also invasive research on the objects. For us, for paleo people, fossils and subfossils, as we know, are very finite resources. And for example, such work as DNA extraction from very small samples may require just completely dissolving the whole sample. So we have to consider providing backups at some stages of laboratory work. Or, for example, how much work has to be done before we put this sample into the lab. There are also issues of colonialism and the appreciation of women's work. They are both interconnected into the ethical aspects of zoology collection management. And in here we can see the two photos from the exhibition and dealing with those issues. On the left is the exhibition from Grand Museum of Zoology from University of London, and it dealt with the colonialism as collecting animals for science was very interconnected with British Empire. And there are different ways that museum can actively fight issues like colonialism and the appreciation of women's work. They don't have to make the whole exhibition for it. But there is a huge discussion about how much information should be actually included on the exhibition, how much text should a label for the certain specimen or certain artwork have. Should it be just the name of the author, just the name of the species, or should it be some note that will actually shape the opinion of the visitor? So to summarize, I didn't answer the question, what's ethical in zoology collection management, and I was not trying to. But what I can say that we started to talk a lot more about speciesism, and there's this one philosopher that says that speciesism is on par with sexism and racism as a modern problems. And for museums, for museologists, it is just ethical to treat every single specimen with the same care, and it's not dependent on worldview, because we should understand the specimens as the three-dimensional archive of nature and its relationships, and most of them are long gone, and preserving those informations, preserving this is the mission of the museums. So I would like to thank you for listening to me in this beautiful Friday afternoon. This was actually a very short part of my thesis that I prepared at the University of Gdańsk for my museology studies, and I am open to your questions.